Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we're taking a deep dive into something I think literally every single one of us struggles with: finding stability in a world that just never seems to stop spinning. We're unpacking a fascinating talk given by Pastor John Larson at East University over in Kenya. He tackled this massive, universal modern problem, that feeling of being constantly overwhelmed, and he explored an ancient framework for actually surviving that chaos. So let's jump right in and see how this ancient wisdom can directly impact our super high-speed lives today. So let me ask you, do you feel like you're constantly rushing? Because Larson connected instantly with his audience on this, and honestly, I bet it hits home for you too. Just think about your average day. You're probably fighting through gridlocked traffic just to get to work or class. And hey, if you're a student, you're dealing with crushing academic pressures. Larson actually mentions the heavy stress of continuous assessment tests, they call them CATs, that students face literally every single month. Add group work, family obligations, and, oh yeah, the endless buzzing distractions of our phones into the mix. It really feels like we're just running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, doesn't it? Well, this exhaustion we're all feeling, it actually stems from a pretty wild historical reality. Larson points out that we are globally the busiest generation in human history. No joke. Whether you're in the United States, Kenya, or anywhere else, the sheer pace of our lives is completely unprecedented. Think about it. Our grandparents simply didn't have a framework to even imagine the level of constant connectivity and the massive volume of expectations placed on us today. We are doing so much and moving so incredibly fast that we're basically forcing ourselves to run significantly faster than we allow ourselves to actually grow. And that brings us to the absolute core of Larson's entire message. Deep roots produce big fruit, right? If you want your life to matter, if you want to leave a real legacy, reach the world, and see meaningful, lasting outcomes, what he calls big fruit, you cannot get there by just rushing faster. It doesn't work. True, lasting, outward growth requires taking intentional time to cultivate a really strong inner foundation. Basically, Larson argues that we have to grow downward before we can ever expect to grow upward. To make this a bit more visual, Larson pulls this ancient agricultural metaphor from the book of Psalms, specifically Psalm chapter 1. He talks about chaff. Now, back in the day, when ancient farmers harvested wheat, they kept the heavy, valuable kernel. But the leftover, rootless, dry husks, the chaff, were literally just tossed up into the air to be blown away by the wind. Chaff has absolutely no roots, it has zero substance, and in this context, it perfectly represents a chaotic, rushed modern life that's completely at the mercy of whatever external pressures or winds just happen to blow its way. It is literally the ultimate picture of instability. So this gives us a really beautiful contrast. On one side, we have the chaotic, unstable life of the chaff, rootless, temporary, easily blown away by the slightest little breeze of stress. But contrast that with the metaphor of the tree. A person who cultivates deep roots is described as a tree planted deliberately by streams of living water. Their leaves are green, they are incredibly stable, and they yield fruit in season. Whatever they do prospers. Why? Because they aren't being tossed around by the wind. They're totally anchored by those deep, deep roots. To ground this metaphor even further, pun definitely intended, Larson introduces two highly resilient real-world trees to represent what spiritual and personal stability actually looks like in practice. First, the mugumo tree, which is this famous, lush, intensely green tree found in places like the Nairobi National Park in Kenya. And second, the ancient olive tree, a really powerful biblical symbol of steadfastness. These aren't just pretty plants to look at. They are incredible, mind-blowing examples of biological survival and prosperity. Okay, get this. Consider the number 180. Larson points out that a single, healthy, deeply rooted olive tree can produce up to 180 kilograms of olives every single year. I mean, wow, that is a massive amount of prosperity and abundance coming from just one single source. It's really the perfect real-life illustration of big fruit resulting from a deep, strong root system. But hey, it's not just about what they produce, it's about how long they actually last. 1,000 years. Yeah, olive trees can live for over a millennium. Larson even notes that his own country, the United States, is only about 250 years old. Just wrap your head around that. There are living, breathing olive trees on this earth right now that have been alive 4 times longer than entire modern nations. They outlast whole empires. They are the ultimate symbol of longevity, staying fresh, green, and fruitful even in their absolute old age. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why Larson focuses on them. Olive trees don't just grow in perfect, manicured little gardens. No, they thrive in dry, rocky, totally unforgiving ground. Plus, farmers actively plant them to prevent soil erosion. They literally hold the earth together when everything else is falling apart. They flourish in the harshest conditions imaginable. Larson uses this as a metaphor for a deeply rooted person, someone who brings life, stability, and growth to the absolute hardest, rockiest, most difficult environments in society. To show how this works in human terms, Larson shifts to a really dramatic historical case study, King David, specifically during the events that led him to write Psalm 52. Now, setting the scene here, at this point, David wasn't even the king yet. He was quite literally running for his life from his own father-in-law, King Saul. He was hiding out in caves, he was starving, betrayed by spies, and his mere presence even inadvertently led to the tragic murder of priests who had tried to help him. It was a situation of absolute terrifying chaos and disaster. And yet, right in the middle of his life completely and utterly falling apart, David writes this incredible sentence, "But I am like an olive tree flourishing in the house of God." Seriously, despite the chaos, despite the immense tragedy, despite the fact that he is a literal fugitive sleeping in caves, David miraculously views himself as a stable, green, flourishing olive tree. How is that even possible? Well, it's because his stability wasn't based on his external circumstances. It was entirely based on his deep internal spiritual roots. So the big question, how do we get those roots? Larson breaks down Psalm 52 into 3 specific, actionable steps derived directly from David's ancient text. And these are steps that any overwhelmed student, any super busy professional, really anyone fighting the rush of modern life can use to grow their own deep roots today. Step 1, I'll trust you. Step 2, I'll thank you. And step 3, I'll stay right here. Let's quickly break these down to understand exactly how they create that unshakable stability.
Okay, step 1 is trust. This is a deliberate decision to obey. Larson explains that deep roots, well, they aren't an accident. They're formed every single time you actively choose to trust, even when you can't see the immediate results above the surface. Next up, step 2 is thank. This is all about maintaining a heart of gratitude. Deciding to be thankful, especially during those incredibly chaotic times, acts as essential nourishment. It literally waters your roots.
And finally, step 3 is stay, remaining in his presence. Now, I know in our crazy busy generation, this feels totally countercultural, but there is profound power in simply staying present rather than constantly rushing off to the very next distraction. Which brings our narrative full circle, right back to our anchor phrase, deep roots produce big fruit. Larson emphasizes that we absolutely cannot bypass the roots to get to the branches. If we want our branches to go wide, if we want to provide shade for the people around us, and if we want to produce big, lasting fruit in our lives, we have to do the quiet, unseen work first. Trusting, thinking, and staying. Those 3 simple actions are exactly how we achieve the massive, visible growth we're all looking for.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the exact same challenge Pastor Larson gave his audience. Where do your roots need to go deep today? Really think about it. Which of those 3 steps do you personally need to practice right now to overcome the rush of your modern life? Do you need to focus on trusting a bit more, cultivating gratitude, or maybe just slowing down to simply stay present? Because if you don't slow down to cultivate what's underground, what exactly are you expecting to grow above it?